I guess I'll start off a little bit simple. Could I get you two to both just introduce yourselves and maybe tell me a little bit about your role and what you do?
Sure. My name is Maciej Gołębiewski. I'm the managing director of GOG. I've been running the company for 2 years now, since 2024. I've been on the board since 2022, and I joined the company in 2016. Been through a bunch of roles since then. Now I'm running the show here at GOG. And with me is
Piotr. I'm a senior PR. I'm here mainly to listen, but sometimes I'll chip in.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. I guess maybe I'd like to know just a little bit more about how you two got started with GOG before we jump into the big questions, I guess.
So my first job was actually a junior product specialist, which I helped publishers onboard their games onto GOG. It was 2016, so the process was way less streamlined and automated than it is today. So that was my first gig, and I also was scanning all their game manuals and adding them as goodies whenever this was possible. So a bunch of different game related stuff. That's how I started with GOG.
Yeah, I'm here for 1 year right now. I was recruited. I answered the recruitment ad on one websites. I always liked GOG. I was like what they do. I feel close to the mission, and I'm happy that I could do game innovation stuff with the institutions that we are a part of right now, like EdCamp and others. So not only doing this on the commercial side, but also do more of a service to the community.
Okay, cool. And I think the biggest question that I, as well as most people have in their mind, what's the difference that changes from day to day now that GOG is independent again from CD PROJEKT Red?
The ownership structure is different. Apart from that, I think just having one owner in terms of just one person rather than a publicly listed company with a board of directors and all of that. So that for now that's different, and this is a new reality for us. But in terms of what we're doing this month, how is GOG operating, not a major change. We are still the same company with the same mission, with the same strategy. It's just that there might be more things that will appear on the horizon, later in the year. It's the third week, right? So of January, but we've just went through the process really. So we are right now managing the carve out from CDPR, just to make sure that we separate in a efficient way. So this is our key focus. And then I think that you'll see probably more cooperation between GOG and Michał's other businesses that he has such as RetroVibe, which is a publishing label. So there's for sure a lot of things that we can do together in the future.
Okay, that was my impression. From the outside, at least looking in, it did seem like a board of directors kind of shuffle. So I was interested to see if anything did change day to day, but it's interesting to see that it's fairly the same.
A lot of stuff that you have to do in Poland. If you're a publicly listed company, you have to do a lot of stuff like audits, like reporting, writing things for the
It's easier. It will be a little bit easier for us to operate, as we are no longer a part of a publicly listed company, basically. So there's less paperwork, I would say.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like you'll be able to focus more on what matters, like the game preservation, and less on the stuffy paper stuff. So
yes, and also if CDPR is categorized as a big company in Poland, so being smaller company also helps a lot and makes things sometimes easier for you because you have different obligations, but also you can get different benefits than the huge companies.
And how does your relationship look with CD PROJEKT going forward? Obviously, I know that you guys have deep ties together. So is it more going to be hands off, like you guys are talking about? You're going to be working with other people like RetroWave, or is it going to still be RetroVibe? I apologize. Or is it still going to be collaborative, between the two of you?
You're asking about CD PROJEKT, our relationship with CD PROJEKT. I mean, it's pretty standard. We'll continue distributing their games and the upcoming games as well. We are also a part of the same campus here in Warsaw, so we'll be just seeing each other, I would say. But I think the main axis of the cooperation is the best place to buy CDPR games, and that's how the cooperation will look like from now on.
Okay, cool. And I know we talked about collaborating with other smaller companies. What's something that you weren't able to prioritize under CD Projekt Red, but now that you would be able to as a more independent?
I think I'll give you a bit more general answer, but I would say that the risk profile is different. So the risk appetite, I would say, is different, and also the new owner, if not the biggest, then one of the biggest companies in his portfolio. So obviously for Michał, I think we are like a key focus right now, and for CDPR, obviously CDPR was the biggest focus because this is what their strategy is about. This is what they do. They have plenty of cool stuff ahead. So probably a bit easier to be innovative in this setup.
I like the risk appetite is different. That's a good answer. Now I'm just gonna go to the next section, roadmap and focus. So I think you kind of answered it a bit, but what does like your roadmap look like now that you don't have to balance another company's priorities or, like you said, deal with all the the public trading business?
Yeah, so like we usually disclose what we are planning the moment it's ready and it's shipped.
Okay.
So we're not really discussing the roadmap so far ahead. We're definitely taking care of the separation of the carve out right now. This is on our focus, and also having some deeper, I would say, workshops and discussions with Michał and his team regarding the future and the vision for GOG. So I would say that's the nearest roadmap.
Okay, awesome. And are there any features, preservation efforts, or partnerships like Retro Vibe that you said like are finally possible because of the move that might have not been able or feasible before?
Certainly the ownership structure changes a lot of things. It changes like what our organizations incentivize to focus on. So like being part of one family with Retro Vibe, I think it's natural that we'll be looking into that. However, I don't have any super specific answer.
And obviously, I think personally one of the most important things about GOG is preservation. Could you maybe explain to me a bit more like what that means for you guys in practice? Like,
what does preservation mean to us in practice?
Yes, I know that it's a part of the core of the business, but I kind of wanted to hear about what it means to you guys.
Yeah, sure. So preservation for us is kind of the core of the DNA. So our mission at GOG is to make games live forever. So we believe that games are art. We believe that they are a part of cultural heritage, and that we should protect them to the best of our abilities from being inaccessible, unplayable, and so on. And the journey with preservation starts at the Dreamlist at GOG, so GOG.com /Dreamlist. This is basically the place when we are gathering all of the interest stories regarding the games that are no longer accessible, or they're not accessible in the DRM-free form. So this is for us, the upper funnel of preservation. That's how we discover that there are games there that people crave. And then there is a bunch of work, basically, bunch of legal, technical, business development work to get those games onto GOG, get those games in a playable format, in the best possible format for that given game. And also make it, commercially viable for IP owner and for us, just make it a success, so we can keep repeating this cycle. But that also means not only releasing new old games, but taking care of the games that are accessible. You can purchase them. It's just they're not that playable anymore, right? There's something. The systems have changed. Hardware has changed. Potentially, it's a lot harder to play that game, or there are accessibility issues that no one thought about those 15 years ago. So that's also something that we do to make sure that we are offering the finest editions of those classic games on GOG.
Yeah, I really appreciate your answer. And I guess this isn't a question I have, but you just kind of made me think of it, was how do you approach game preservation when it comes to like modern creation of games? Like when I see GOG, I see, like you said, you have your dream list. It's a lot of like older games, or when I think preservation, I think of like saving an older game. But do you work with, or do you have any like practices on how to make modern games preserved? You know what I mean? Like or is it mostly focused like on once the game is made, how to preserve it?
It's funny that you asked that, because yesterday we released a movie when we are saying the story of how we preserved the game of one of the iconic Polish developers, and also in this movie we are telling other developers what they should do and when they should do it. Like the preservation starts when the game is being made, because all of these memories, pictures, like notes that was taken, like concept art might get lost if you don't preserve them while you're doing the game. And since the storage is getting cheaper and cheaper, like you should preserve everything, because there won't be the launch party, second launch party. There won't be this meeting when it came up with the idea. You won't have the clever workaround of the stuff. You should also archive all of the tools that you use, because in 20 years, maybe you won't be able to decompile the stuff that you did, or also the original assets that you drew, because sometimes like the assets expire or the program or formats are gone. So in a sense, preserve everything all of the time, because it's fairly easy and you won't have second chance to do it.
So just like develop with longevity and sustainability of the product in mind, I would say. But also for us, I think preservation of the modern games is also the less third-party software that's wrapped around the game, the better. Therefore, the stance on the like DRM and other third-party software that decides whether you can like launch the game or not launch the game. So the less there is those add-ons on top of the base game, the better. It's been for us a major hurdle throughout the years, sometime to just remove that part from the game. So the game was fine, but the solution for DRM was broken. So it was the coupling those two has its quirks and was an issue. So even if as a publisher your idea is to have a de novo at launch in your game and you want the DRM there, just for the love of God, create a white label version of that game somewhere, like store it securely, but just have a white label version of that game available. You don't know, maybe in 15 years or 20 years, like a museum would like to show your game to someone, and if they will have de novo in there, like might not work, or they might not be able to utilize the de novo, because there's probably some legal work around it as well. So just create vanilla versions of your games, even if your go-to-market considers having the de novo inside, or like other form of DRM.
And I'm assuming that's not the norm, right? Like I don't assume someone makes a game and is like, oh, I'm gonna make a vanilla version so that it can be used in 20 years. Like I feel like what GOG does, and even with like the movement like Stop Killing Games, I feel like developers are maybe starting to catch on to that, but I feel like that's still a very like niche way of thinking.
I would say that it's getting more and more common. Like all the big corporations right now have game preservation as units, because they know the games and the IPs are their legacy, and they could be a long run with sales. So if they do not preserve what was created, they won't be able to do remasters, remakes, or do next in some of the franchise. And game preservation is not like a gimmick right now. It's like a business strategy. If you talk to people from PlayStation, you will know that they hunt everything they can and store in some bunker under the mountain and do like a special geo server, so people can more easily redraw patch and build the games to work on them. And from what we heard, it's like a common practice with big publishers. So I would say game preservation will be more and more important, because as a gamers, we are growing as an industry. We are getting older, more mature, and you could look up to like movie industry, when you can monetize the movie that was made like 50 years ago, like every 10 years you can release this movie. And we've seen this with Oblivion and a lot of other remasters from Xbox 360, PS2, PS3 era, because there'll be a lot of gamers in the world that are young, that are just entering the space, and why the hell they should know like the golden oldies remain for them. But to be able to do this, you need to think ahead about preservation.
That's great, and that's a viable business approach. Also, those games have oftentimes they have an immense like fun factor. They're really like fun to play. They give a lot of joy, and sometimes it's just a matter of like retouching the visuals or just making sure that it actually launches in a higher resolution. And there's no reason why younger generations of gamers would not, appreciate or enjoy these games. And some of those older games even have, sometimes they're a little bit more like a book. So it's more of an experience that you get, and a bit less of just the information that you're being bombarded with from the get-go. So they're maybe a little bit slower at times, but I think there's a moment in life for high-paced games and like slower-paced games. So both of those are cool.
I would also add that games are now aging slower, like from the PS3 era. We are playing GTA 5 from PS3, for PS4, and now PS5. Possibly we're playing GTA 5 on PS6. And if you look at The Witcher 3 or Fallout 4, these are 10 years old games, so they're golden old, they're classics, and they still look amazing. So the games are aging slower, hence we can monetize and play them longer, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of incentive to do preservation, because if you do it right, you can benefit from and de-risk the investment, and these are huge right now in the new installment of the games and new franchises.
And we talked a little bit about game preservation. How do you approach preservation when modern games are increasingly always online, live service, or dependent on external servers or DRM, like you mentioned? What's the difference in saving a game like that, like a GTA Online being preserved or a GTA 5 being preserved, rather than something like an Oblivion?
I mean, that I think to be honest, we haven't figured that out yet. So we're not focusing on those. There's so much to do on the single player on front, or even the ones that have like co-op or whatever. Then that there's a plenty of work and challenges to be tackled by by us and by our community, so that for now we're not looking at in this direction. Though, as you said, there are certain like initiatives such as Stop Killing Games, right, that are trying to, I would say, persuade the owners of those online games to actually think about it. Like, how would an end of life cycle for GTA look like, right? Like, what would happen? Because there's dozens communities, dozens of creators around this game, so it's become a universe of its own. So what happens to it when GTA 6 comes out?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about like MMORPGs lately, and even like New Worlds being acquired or potentially being acquired by Hypixel. And so I always think about like you said, there's so many games to focus on. You don't need to think about Grand Theft Auto right now. But I was an interesting idea because, like I said, like all these new games and like are all very different from a game from 10 years ago. So do you think preservation is becoming harder or more urgent right now, or do you think it's staying like the same?
Is it becoming more harder? Yes and no. Yes, because we've brought back a lot of the games that were not like available to people. So in this regard, it's harder because we are left with the hardest one to get after those years, right? So it's on this front, it's a little bit harder, and on the other front, it's a little bit easier because we all like. One thing, like we are, I would say, known in the industry that this is what we do. So it's easier to bring back those games for us. We have grown our internal expertise around game preservation for those 18 years. So also because of that, this is easier for us. We have an awesome community that's supporting this initiative. So that's another reason why it's easier. But there's lots of games that are 10 years old right now. Like Witcher 3 is already more than 10 years. So there will be much more to take care of in the future. So in this case, in this regard, it will get a lot harder because there's so many games that in 5, 10, 15 years, we probably will be surprised how many of them will be broken to some extent because of the changing environment, because of the changing systems. I think that there will be just more work to do around that.
And do you have like a white whale for your game preservation?
You could look at our dream list and see.
I see Final Fantasy X. That one for me would probably be, or like Doom Eternal.
Yeah, but like also like freelancer, no one lives forever. Black and white, those are the white whales. That's for sure. But there's plenty of more games that people are looking for. What was the name of the one that we talked about today previously? The
Neverhood.
Neverhood. Yes, like Neverhood. Also, I mean, I'm just mentioning because I've on a few occasions, some like super random people in my life said that they are actually like waiting for this game to be brought back because of the artwork, because of the soundtrack, and so on. So many people want the Digimon world back. So like
Oof.
turns out there are communities out there,
Add me
right?
to the list. That would be awesome. Okay, and I guess my next question, I just maybe want to understand a little bit about like how the actual game preservation funnel works. Like for example, like on the dream list for freelancer, how does that work? Like, would you buy the IP, you buy the rights, you preserve
No,
the
no,
game?
no. This is no. We like the IPs usually like stay with the owner of the IP. So like the Dreamless says, you're right that this is like upper funnel of the preservation because that's how we understand that. That's how we know what people are after. What do they miss the most? And this also informs our like internal priorities on which game do we focus on. But there are many factors. There is like, do people want this game back? Who owns the game? Is it one or more entities? Do those entities talk to each other? Are they in conflict or not? And like, so that's another factor. The third factor is like, how do we make it commercially viable? So how, like, what needs to happen for us to make a good enough offer to the IP owner to consider re-releasing their games? Because usually those are like, either those companies don't exist and this is a detective work of finding like who owns the IP, or those companies do exist and they were quite successful and now they're taking care of like much bigger projects than bringing back this particular game. So it's a combination of factors. But yeah, like from the player standpoint, if you're interested in a game being preserved and brought back, your like best bet is to go on a dream list and leave a vote, leave a story, so we know that you care about
Okay.
this game, and we also can show it to the publisher, to the developer, to the right holder of that game.
That's
Yeah, the
interesting. It's so
critical games
collaborative. I didn't. That must be like the most difficult part, getting them to talk to you, or like you said, do they get along, and getting them to interact with you. You know, I can imagine there's a lot of like you said, people just disappearing, or big personalities, or any combination of the three.
Yeah, it's a combination of factors and lots of stuff.
Okay. And then on that same kind of note, when you say actually own your games, what does that mean to you in 2026?
To actually own my games, for me, that's that I can enjoy this game wherever I want. I can download the files, that no one is deciding for me whether I can launch it or not. So like good old, I would say, vanilla style. So you can download your game, and you can play it, and you don't have to connect to any servers and prove that you are you. And oftentimes not only the game, but also all of the stuff that came with the game. So like art books, soundtracks, all of the additional elements of the game. Sometimes in those art books or in the materials, there's also a little bit about the creators or how the game was made, like what was the biggest challenge, or some early sketches from creating this game. So I think that's just additional context that gives me this feeling of ownership, but also collectibility. So like just like that's like kind of a collection. That this is more than an exe file, but something more.
And how do you think ownership as the industry shifts towards subscriptions and streaming works with like game ownership? Like for example,
Yeah.
when I was doing some research for this interview, I was reading that like all my Steam games, I have licenses to play my Steam games. I don't actually own them. And for if Steam were to disappear tomorrow, then so would all my games. So I was just wanted to know what you think about ownership, especially like I said, in terms of like subscriptions and streaming.
Subscriptions like an interesting proposition, because they usually have a like great value for money. So there's like probably a lot of content that you would get for the amount of money. But there are two caveats to that. One is that if the scale is not built, usually the quality decreases over time, and there is less and less you get for your amount of dollars or any other currency. Or in order for the quality to stay the same, the prices need to go up. And you can end up in a situation in which like you have paid hundreds of dollars for access to this whole, like this huge catalog of games from which you probably played 5 or 6. And then the moment you stop playing, you have like you don't have your save files, you don't have the game, you cannot play the game anymore. So I think it's a risk basically, right? Because at the end of the day, if you like to get, then after that, even if you like to come back to one of your favorite games, and if you can find out that the subscription service is actually not providing it anymore because the rights expired, and there's even no way for you to come back to your save or to the game itself. Like it happens to movies as well, right? That you have a plethora of different streaming services, and like more than I can count at this moment. But if you're looking for a very specific movie that was like important to you and you would like to go back to it, suddenly, like I mean, at a given moment, not one of those streaming services are offering this movie, or the one that actually offers this movie does not serve your country. So it's really and it's a hit or miss. So I'd rather not. Me personally, I'd rather not play those games, and if I can own something, if I can own one of my favorite movies, and maybe I would like to watch with my kids, I'd rather have it and not rent it and hope for it to be rentable, in the future.
I just went through that exact issue with my daughter, so I'm very much in agreement with that. Now, I personally think that your attitude about game ownership is maybe a little bit different than I would say like the overall. Do you think that like the overall attitude towards game preservation is changing? Like, do you think it's becoming more towards I would say GOG side, or do you think that ownership is still a niche concern and most people don't care and they'll keep ripping Fortnite on their monthly subscription? Or
I mean, I think it's both really. So I mean, I won't give you a definite answer. For sure, the more there are aware consumers like gamers that are aware of like what's happening, and that they are like renting, and someone can actually remove a song from your game or whatever. The more of them would like to have a choice, an alternative, right? So because I'm all for, I would say, freedom. So it's like when you as a customer, when you as a gamer, you have a choice to either subscribe or rent or buy or stream. That's cool, because that's okay, because you're in control. You have those options. What I'm not a fan of is that when you're stuck with one option and that's there are no alternatives, because then the owner of that service or that subscription there is a like big power imbalance between you as a customer and that company as the provider, right? So I understand that we are living in a probably ever online world. We don't know whether that's good, really, and what is the long-term effect that it has on us and on our kids. And B, like optionality for me is like really like optionality is the key, because yes, ever online world, and we don't know whether that's good or bad in the long term. So far, monopolies are not like something that people are looking for, right? This is not that we hope that we get another monopoly on the market. So being a conscious consumer, it's good to make conscious decisions on what that services and companies we are using, because either we are creating more choices for ourselves or we are creating less choices. If I may ask, like how old is your daughter?
she's 4.
She's 4. So there's this book called The Anxious Generation. I don't know if you know it or not.
I haven't picked it up, but
Yeah. So, I mean, the online world is a different planet. Being able to stay offline and being able to curate the experience, for example, for your kids, whether this is curating the experience, the movies that your kids are watching or the games that they are playing, I think it's important to have that possibility, because it's a like Minecraft for its like single player mode is a completely different game than a Minecraft on its multiplayer mode and the servers and what you can find on those servers and so on. So again, like I'm a fan of optionality.
yeah. I think the choice is a really like that's like the crux of it, right? That's like you know, you want to be able to play your live service games or play your preserved games. So I think that's really a good way of putting it. And I totally agree that like awareness, I think, is the most important thing. I think right now why it's in such a forefront of the community's mind is like Stop Killing Games was a few months ago, and now GOG is picking up steam with this new acquisition. I feel like it's, like you said, at the forefront of people's mind. They're being talked about, and it's kind of one of those things, personally at least, where it's seems like a common sense thing. Like, of course, I want to own my games. Like, I don't want anyone else to take my game. So I think that once you learn about it, it makes all of the sense. So, I know we don't have a ton of time left, so I really want to ask my most important question. I would say, you guys are competing against far more aggressive monetization models. How do you make preservation first models sustainable?
How do we make against other more aggressive monetization models?
Like we talked about it briefly, but like when you have an IP that you want to go and you talk to, here I'm gonna pull up the list again. Freelance, the developer of Freelancer. How do you pitch it to them? Like, for example, like obviously you're not buying the IP. How do you financially?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is pretty simple. We need to be super great at everything that we do at GOG. So we need to be great at every single thing that we are doing, whether it's like business development, product development, or marketing, user acquisition. We really need to set up a high bar for ourselves to make sure that we stay competitive and that we release on board and release those games profitably, so we can repeat the cycle. But I mean, so at least like 2025 was I think once we like publish the results, because the results will be public, like you can make it or we cannot make it, so cannot spoil the results, but
okay, fair.
There's just a really high bar for everything that we're doing here.
I mean, it totally makes sense. Like I said, like, looking at the Epic Game Store, just for an example, compared to like GOG, it's obviously very, very different. So that's where I was interested, because I wanted to know, like, where does GOG draw the line between like commercial reality and viability and core values? Do you know what I mean?
It's a thin line to walk on, but this is it's our job to walk on that line. So we need to be commercially. We need to be commercially like strong in terms of running, promos, running like marketing, again, user acquisition, brand campaigns, and all of that. We need to be strong on that front, because without it, we wouldn't be able to continue. I would say the more like core values oriented stuff, right?
Okay, it's like game preservation ecosystem, and it's all
important. Yeah.
Okay. This one might be a little bit out there. You can feel free to not answer. Is there ever pressure to compromise? Like when I guess my example is like something like Final Fantasy X. Like, is there a game that could make GOG a very financially viable one, but it might not be the most, I don't know, it might not be the highest on the dream list. Is there ever pressure to kind of push through a game that would be financially viable, even if it's maybe not what the community is looking for? Or is it strict, we're going by the dream list, we're listening to the community, that's all kind of thing?
I find it difficult to imagine a scenario when the community, for example, wouldn't want it, that it would be commercially viable for us. So every company has its customers, every company hopefully has its fans, and I think it's really important to stay close to them and to understand what are they need. So no, I cannot really think of a game that we would onboard against our customers.
I love it. Talking to you guys. I have a few more questions, but it's clear how like integrated the core values and like the business model are with each other. It's very. I really respect it.
Thank you.
And now,
Appreciate it.
just my last two questions. A few years from now, after the acquisition, how do you define success for GOG? Like, do you want it to be the game purchasing website? Like, I know that you guys aren't trying to replace Steam, but what's success for GOG look like?
Freelancer was released, and Total Command Conquer series finds its way on GOG. There's a black and white on the big spot. So this is how success looks like. Perhaps after the merger, you'd see that some of the games that GOG has published made its way to the Golden Joystick Awards or BAFTA Awards. I don't know, like just that we helped some of the creators find their audience and just also be successful and be able to create more experiences for gamers. So yeah,
it sounds like being able to help, like you said, the smaller creators breathe new life into past games and help gamers really like stay in touch and be able to have those old games.
Maybe,
sounds like the most important thing. I think like just talking to you guys, like you mentioned books, you mentioned movies, like both those things are like tangible pieces of media that you can go back on and look at many years after. And so for me, for games, it's like one of those things where like it seems so obvious you should be able to do it. So I just want to say thank you for not only talking with me today, but for working so hard on game preservation. I think it's really important and a super cool thing that you guys are doing. Not only just important, but super cool. So
yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt you do, but do you have any questions for me or anything you wanted to touch base on quickly? I have a few minutes.
I think we're good. We touched on subjects.
I think we're good. So like happy to see the article when it comes out. So
many thanks to you for spreading the good word about the game preservation and its importance. It helps us, helps the cause. The more people read and talk about it, the more publishers are into this. So it helps our cause and help gamers via us. So.
I'm trying to help the ecosystem.
It seems you're on like also kind of a independent path yourself with skills. So respect.
I will send you the article when it's done. It hopefully shouldn't be too long. And I hope to talk to you both again. It was very lovely meeting you, and I appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.